Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're gonna not gonna be doing a regular video where I review games. Today I'm gonna be showing you three tricks or traps to win the queen. So let's start with the first one. The first one you play with the uncommon move. Nobody plays this move. If you play this, means that you know your story. I've never seen anyone play this move, but we're gonna play it anyway. We play knight to f3. Then it's kind of like we're closing the square on e5 for our opponent to develop if they usually play the king's pawn. So it's gonna go to the second best option, which is the queen's pawn, pushing it to d5. Then we continue with our play. We push king's pawn to e4. Oh, look at that, a free pawn. Most, since our opponent doesn't know that we are giving him a free, this is a trap, it's not a free pawn. We're gonna take the pawn. Any person who doesn't know the tricks and traps will take the pawn. So our opponent is going to take it's a free pawn. You have to always take the free pawn, unless there's a trick behind it. But you don't usually see tricks. So if it's a free pawn, a person takes it most times. Then we take the free pawn. Now our opponent is attacking our knight. We have to move the knight to a better square. What is a better square than to attack the pawn? So we move the knight to a square where we attack the pawn. We move knight to g5. Now we are attacking the pawn. Our opponent has to defend their pawn. So there are many pieces that can really defend the pawn, but our opponent will want to make a move where it protects the pawn and helps in development and not bring out the piece that's in danger, or open a square that poses danger to his king. So he's gonna push the knight. Let's continue. Opponent push the knight, protecting the pawn. As we see, we have to get rid of this pawn. Our opponent thinks that we want the pawn, so we continue attacking the pawn. We push the queen's pawn to d3. Oh, there we go. Our opponent has another free pawn. It's not a free pawn because he loses his pawn in the process, but our opponent is already leading in pieces because he already captured that free pawn from the beginning. So he's gonna capture this free pawn. Okay. Then we have to capture the pawn because we cannot give our opponent two pawns. Then we take the pawn on g3. Then our opponent we have to continue playing. Then our opponent saw that, oh, there's a knight there. I have to kick out the knight because it's posing danger to my king. So opponent kicks out the knight. Oh, our knight is under attack. We have to defend it. We have to go back. Where in this position, you don't go back, you go forward. Then this knight is not going back, it's there to attack. So the knight plays the brilliant move, knight to f7, takes the pawn. Your opponent is thinking, oh, this person is just giving me free pieces. Yes, another free piece, and knight. Of course, our opponent is going to accept the free piece. It's a free knight. It's not a pawn, it's a free knight. Our opponent accepts. Then we play the second move, bishop to g6, check. Now our opponent's king cannot go forward. Now our opponent's starting to realize, oh, I'm losing the queen, and I can't go back with the queen, with the king. The king is either takes the bishop or moves forward, where the best move is to take the bishop. Then there's a free queen sitting there for you for the taking. It's there. Nobody's protecting it. Then you go for the queen. Then there you have it. That's the first way to win a queen. Now let's go to our second trap. This trap is very interesting. But at this position, we're gonna play as black. So let's change our pieces, flip the board. There, we have black. This one also has a checkmate inside, but of course, your opponent's gonna sacrifice the queen for the checkmate. So let's go. It starts like this. It starts with the most common move, the king's pawn to e4. Then you respond with the king's pawn to e5. Then your opponent continue in development, which is the knight playing the king's pawn. Playing next to the king's pawn, playing the knight to f3. Now it's a chance to respond. The knight is attacking your pawn, so you have to protect the pawn. Then you push the knight to c5. Then a chance for your opponent to play. Then your opponent pushes the bishop to c4, attacking the pawn on f7, planning to push this knight to f to g5. Then now it's a chance to play. You see that the opponent is planning to fork your queen and your rook, but you ignore that. You're here for the traps. You're here to play your trap, and your trap is going to be successful. So you ignore that. You go for the exchange of the knight instead. So you push your knight to d4. Now your opponent has to make a choice. He either takes a free pawn or he takes the knight. But the better move seems to be taking the free pawn, because you even go on an attack, attacking the pawn on f7, which was the plan all along. So your opponent pushes and takes the free pawn. Continue with the plan to attack the pawn on f7, because now it's being attacked. But you continue and you ignore that. You push queen to g5, attacking the pawn on g2. Now your opponent sees this and says, you didn't move, and sees this and thinks, why did you move your queen to another fork? So your opponent continues to take the pawn on f7. It's still a fork. Then you ignore that. You go for the pawn on g2, protecting your queen in the same time. Then your opponent has to make a choice. If he takes your castle or your rook, you're also taking their rook. So they have to protect their rook first, because your rook is trapped, it can't move. So they move the rook to f3, to f1, sorry, to f1, closer to the king. Now the rook is protected by the king. Now your opponent can take that free rook on h8. Then you play. Yeah, there's not that. Yeah, you don't expect the mate to say. Then you play brilliant move. No, there are no brilliant moves. If you thought I'm gonna say, now you play. There's no brilliant moves. You're just gonna play. Queen takes the king's pawn with a check. Now your opponent has to make a choice. If your opponent covers the square with the bishop, you play the smarter checkmate, knight to f3. And then, if your opponent has to close with the queen, because if they close with the bishop, it's checkmate. So there you have it. There's your free queen. Then you take the queen. Then you win the queen. Your opponent can take with either, even if they take with the bishop, you have won the queen. Then there you have it. There's your trap number 2. Welcome to the thread, the third trap. What the fuck? Language. Language. Why did I say welcome? Why I said welcome at the start of the video? Sometimes we just say sorry for that. Sometimes I talk to myself. why did I say that? Let's go to the third trap. Never mind anything you heard before that. The third trap you're playing is white. Push pawn to e4. Your opponent responds with a Sicilian defense. They push pawn to c5. Then you're like, oh, the Sicilian defense. Then you push pawn to d4. Yes, you say to your opponent, yes, a free pawn. Your opponent is like, it's the third move of the game, and he's giving me free pawns, or she's giving me free pawn. I'm gonna take it. Your opponent accept the free pawn. Then you push in like, you think one pawn was better? Yes, another pawn. Then your opponent takes the pawn. Then you take with the knight to c3. Now your opponent was playing Sicilian, don't forget that. Then they push their knight to c6. If you don't know the Sicilian defense, then I don't know. You should look up openings. Let's continue. Or if you didn't know that playing sequence was the Sicilian defense, now you know it is Sicilian defense. Me right now, I'm playing the Smith-Morra gambit, which was accepted by the pawn. Let's continue. Don't mind too much about what I said about the gambit. We're playing a trap here, want the queen. Then you continue developing, you push knight to f3. Your opponent was like, oh, I want to develop the knight too. But there's your opponent that's gonna attack me as soon as I go to f6. I'm gonna push queen's pawn to d6, covering the square e5. Well, continue with your development. Remember, the reason you are sacrificing those pawns or you're giving those pawns away was to open up your position or makes you lead in development, because as you can see, you're the one leading in development. All your pieces can move. Like your bishops and your queen can move anywhere they want. Then you push bishop to c4. Your opponent was like, oh, let me continue pushing my knight. Your opponent pushes their knight to f6. Then you're like, I'm gonna attack the knight anyway. I don't care that there's a pawn there. You attack the knight. Your opponent is like, but your pawn is under attack. I'm taking it with the knight. Your opponent takes the pawn on e5 with the knight, attacking the bishop, then attacking your knight. But your knight is protected. So you have to accept the knight, because if you don't, your opponent's gonna take your bishop. Then you accept the knight. Your opponent pushes the pawn and takes the knight on e5. Now the pieces are looking at each other. The queens are looking at each other. Your opponent expected that after that move, you're gonna accept the queen, because that's what they want. They want the queen exchange. But you're like, I do want the queen exchange, but I don't want to lose my queen. You play the brilliant move, bishop to f7 with a check. The only move is to accept the bishop. Even if the king wanted to move elsewhere, there are only two. There are only two available squares. Which one is covered by the bishop? The other one is covered by the queen. Which one is has the bishop in it, not covered? The bishop is in the square. What do I say? The bishop is in the square, and the other one, the queen, it's a check. You can't move it. Then the king has to accept because it's a check. Then the queen is there, free for the taking. Then you go and take your queen. You lost the bishop for a queen. There you have it. There are your three traps on now to win the queen. So apply them, but be very careful. If your opponent plays something else, don't continue playing these gambits. Just if your opponent plays something else, Just continue playing a game. Have a backup plan. Don't just go in with these traps. Like, oh, let me go in with the traps. Have a backup plan after they cover those traps. So, thank you. But if just know if they accept the pieces that you're giving them, the trap is working. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Hit the, hit the notification bell. Like, share, comment. And we're gonna see each other next time. Bye bye.